Imagine standing in a forgotten attic, dust motes dancing in a single shaft of light, illuminating the ancient, forgotten things within. And there, nestled amidst the gloom, sits a doll. Not a child's cherished plaything, but something aged, porcelain cracked with time, its glass eyes fixed on you. Unblinking. Unmoving. And as you feel the inexplicable chill creep down your spine, you realize, with a sickening certainty, it has always been watching. My name is Alex, and just a few months ago, I inherited my grandmother's old house. It was a place of comforting memories, sun-drenched rooms filled with the scent of lavender and old books. But among its many charms was an attic, a vast, shadowy expanse I hadn't dared to explore since childhood. Moving in meant a fresh start, a new chapter, and a daunting task, confronting the attic. It was a repository of generations, a time capsule of forgotten lives, promising a treasure trove of family history and perhaps a few charming antiques. Days turned into weeks as I sorted through trunks and boxes, each filled with nostalgic echoes. Then, buried beneath a moth-eaten tapestry and a pile of brittle lace, I found it. A doll. It wasn't merely old. It felt ancient, imbued with a strange, heavy stillness. Its face was a delicate porcelain, unnervingly pale, framed by wisps of dark, tangled hair. She wore a faded blue dress, once perhaps vibrant, now muted by decades. But it was her eyes that truly captured me, two dark, perfectly round glass spheres, reflecting the attic's dim light with an unsettling intensity. They seemed to hold an intelligence, a quiet, knowing gaze that belied her inanimate form. A little creepy, I thought, but fascinating. A unique piece for the living room. A conversation starter. I brought her downstairs, carefully wiping away the layers of dust. I placed her on a high shelf in the living room, a silent sentinel overlooking the room. Her name, I decided, was Isabella, a name that felt as old and elegant as she looked. For the first few days, she was just an object, a striking piece of decor that occasionally caught my eye. I'd glance up from a book, and her unblinking gaze would meet mine, a peculiar, almost disarming sensation. I dismissed it as my mind playing tricks, a natural reaction to such a lifelike antique. It was an old house, after all, full of shadows and strange echoes. My imagination, I told myself, was simply working overtime. But the feeling persisted. It started subtly, a prickle on the back of my neck when I was alone in the room, a sense of unseen eyes tracking my movements. I'd turned sharply, only to find Isabella perfectly still, her glass gaze fixed forward, exactly as I'd left her. Yet, the feeling of being observed grew, a cold thread weaving itself into the fabric of my daily life. Then came the small shifts. A book, left open on the coffee table, would be found closed. A window latch I was sure I'd secured would be slightly ajar. Tiny, insignificant details that, individually, could be explained away by memory lapses or the quirks of an old house. But collectively, they began to chip away at my rational mind, leaving behind a sliver of doubt, a nascent unease that focused squarely on Isabella. I started to pay closer attention to her. I'd leave the room, consciously noting her position, her head slightly tilted towards the fireplace. Upon my return, after only a few minutes, I would find her facing the doorway. Or perhaps her hands, which were delicately posed on her lap, seemed to have shifted, ever so slightly. It was never a dramatic change, never something I could point to definitively. It was always just enough to make me question my own memory, to make me second-guess what I'd sworn I'd seen. A subtle, insidious game, played by something I couldn't comprehend. The quiet of the house, once comforting, now felt heavy, pregnant with unspoken presence. I began to hear things, a faint, almost imperceptible rustle of fabric when I walked past Isabella, a soft sigh that seemed to emanate from the shadowed corner. Where she sat. I'd stop, hold my breath, strain my ears. Nothing. Just the settling of the old house, the creaks and groans of ancient wood. But the sounds were becoming more frequent, more specific. They were whispers, almost. Whispers I couldn't quite decipher, always just beyond the threshold of understanding, but undeniably there. My sleep grew restless, punctuated by vivid, unsettling dreams of unblinking eyes and silent judgment. The paranoia began to consume me. I found myself avoiding Isabella's gaze, walking a wide berth around her shelf. Eventually, the unease became unbearable. One evening, heart-pounding, I carefully lifted her from the shelf, wrapped her in an old blanket, and placed her in the back of a deep closet. Out of sight, out of mind, I hoped. The relief was immediate, a wave of calm washing over me. But it was short-lived. The next morning, I awoke to a scratching sound coming from the closet. Faint, persistent, like fingernails dragging on wood. I froze, too terrified to move. When I finally mustered the courage to open the closet door, the blanket was on the floor, discarded, and Isabella was sitting upright, facing the door, her dark eyes once again fixed on me. Her head was tilted, almost inquisitively. She was out. She was always out. Desperate, I started searching for answers. I delved into old family records, dusty journals, and photo albums, hoping to find some mention of Isabella, some clue to her history. I scoured the internet for similar antique dolls, but none had that same unnerving presence, that same feeling of silent awareness. It felt like a race against an invisible clock. The air in the house grew colder, heavier. Objects continued to shift, doors would slowly creak open, and the whispers intensified, now accompanied by a persistent, chilling cold spot that followed me from room to room. I began to speak to Isabella, my voice trembling, pleading with her for an explanation, for a moment of peace. The silence that answered was far more terrifying than any scream. Then, one night, standing before her, consumed by a cocktail of fear and exhaustion, I noticed something. A faint, almost invisible seam along the back of her porcelain head, hidden beneath the wisps of hair. My fingers trembled as I explored it, feeling a tiny latch. With a soft click, a small section of her head swung open. Inside, tucked into the hollow space, was a minuscule, faded scroll of paper. I carefully unfurled it. It was a note, written in delicate, archaic script. It simply read, "She watches. She remembers. She waits for the truth to be known." As I read those words, a soft, almost imperceptible sigh emanated from Isabella. Her dark glass eyes, reflecting the single lamp in the room, seemed to shimmer, and for a fleeting, horrifying instant, I swore I saw a single tear tracing a path down her porcelain cheek. It wasn't a doll. It was a vessel. A witness. And she had been waiting for me. Now, Isabella sits in the living room, exactly where I first placed her. I cannot bring myself to cover her or to put her away again. The truth she waits for remains a dark, swirling mystery, etched into the very walls of this old house. But I know she is here, a silent presence, her unblinking gaze fixed not just on me, but on everything that transpires within these walls. The fear isn't of what she might do, but of what she has seen, what she knows, and the terrible, patient eternity of her observation. If you found yourself trapped in the gaze of the unseen, forever under the watch of something ancient and knowing, would you ever truly be alone again? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more dark stories. Because sometimes, the most terrifying things are the ones that do nothing at all.